Among many other things on the agenda, Ariel and I are now going to do a two-part video series about the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, and later the Nag Hammadi, and how it's all connected to what is in the Wes Penre papers, WPP, our cosmic history and the times we're living in right now. We will start with the Emerald Tablets. We want you to keep in mind that this is an interpretation of Thoth's words, based on the knowledge we now have. You might interpret some of it differently, which is perfectly fine. Some is speculative, but much of it seems quite to the point, in our opinion. The Emerald Tablets of Thoth consist of 15 tablets, by far predating the Nag Hammadi scriptures. Some say they are 5,600 years old. The tablets can be downloaded for free in many places on the internet. We are going to go through them briefly, highlighting and discussing the parts that are significant for us who are living in these times. The reason we are bringing this up now is because we believe that the time is right. If we all would have read the tablets perhaps 10 to 15 years ago, we wouldn't have understood them as well as we hopefully will now, once we have gathered the appropriate knowledge in general that's required for us to better understand them. Let's start with the question, who was Thoth? According to his own statement, he was the son of Thoth, who is evidently Enki. This becomes very clear when we read the tablets. In other words, he was Enki's second son, brother of Marduk. Moreover, what becomes clear is that Thoth was also Hermes, Mercury, Ningishida, Quetzalcoatl, Noah, and most probably also Enoch, who went with God. He was probably also other teachers throughout history, in other incarnations, teachers who might not have been directly connected to him. Now the question is Thoth credible? That's for each person to discern, but it's our conclusion that he did tell the truth in much of his teachings, but the full message is deceptive. Thoth is pointing out that the knowledge he relayed was not meant to be understood by the population that paralleled his own incarnations. It was written for the future humans to comprehend. The listener might doubt the significance of his teachings because he is the son of Enki, but bear with us. There is a reason why Thoth was sent on a mission by his father to explore, learn and teach. Something else to ponder is whether Thoth indeed was Enki himself in different incarnations. This can't be completely dismissed, but we tend to believe he was his own unique soul. In the WPP, I wrote that Enki is dwelling in the abyss, aka the Abzu, but I never went into what the Abzu is. In the tablets, it's termed the halls of Amenti. In my papers, I also wrote that the AIF, or some of them at least, have bodies in stasis, both on Mars and here on Earth. This is true according to the tablets as well, for both Enki, Thoth, and 8 other gods. The halls of Amenti are located beneath the surface of the Earth, not in the center, but somewhere deep under the crust. Here 9 gods have their abode, and here is where they dwell, in preserved physical bodies, being able to send their souls out into the world and elsewhere, having human incarnations while their original bodies are in stasis. These gods are also the guardians of the eternal fire, as Thoth puts it. We find this quite interesting because in the WPP and in our videos, it's mentioned that there is a central fire in the core of the universe, from where souls ultimately take their fire soul energy. The eternal fire that the gods are guarding must thus be the fire of the Queen, incarnated as Mother Gaia. One of my key sources, who must remain anonymous, told me once when we discussed Osiris and Horus, whom we relate to as Enki and Marduk respectively, that Enki and Marduk had father and son issues. I didn't know what my source meant until now, having read the tablets. I now feel quite confident that he meant that the roles were switched. Osiris was Marduk and Horus was Enki. How did I reach that conclusion? Because the gods have their amenti, bodies in stasis and incarnate as they wish. Why then wouldn't they switch roles? Sometimes Enki is the father and sometimes Marduk is. Food for thoughts. If I'm correct, we might need to reconsider these father-son relations in general when it comes to the gods and their incarnations here on Earth. Moreover, in the middle of each galaxy, as we can see in images, there is a central core which looks like a reservoir of fire, which it is. Therefore, if we have the central fire coming from the central supergalaxy of the real universe, it branches out into balls of fire that rotate and create nebulae and stars, etc. Each star is another smaller version of the central fire, spinning and creating planets that rotate around their stars' suns. Then, if a planet is inhabitable, or meant to emanate life, there is also a reservoir of fire inside the planet. It's the latter fire that the gods are the guardians of. Thoth explains that no human knows the route to the halls of Amenti, because this path is hidden from man. The reason it's called the halls of Amenti is because there are at least 2 different halls or perhaps caverns, if they are even in this dimension. One of these halls is populated by the benevolent gods, light beings, who are 7 in numbers, 7 being the key number for the overlords. And the other hall is occupied by 2 dark beings, whom we highly suspect are Marduk and Ereshkigal, the king and queen of the underworld. These 2 groups of gods are also called the Lords of Life and the Lords of Death, respectively. Enki, being the god of this construct matrix, of course looks at himself as the light bearer or light bringer, and he sees himself as benevolent because he doesn't seem to know better. This will be further explained when we dig into the Nag Hammadi in later videos. In the Vedas, it's explained quite exquisitely that Marduk is in charge of the chakras, as mentioned in the WPP, but in the Emerald Tablets, Thoth tells us that there are different gods, lords, in charge of the 7 chakras, 1 god for each. Which text is correct is irrelevant. What's important is that the overlords control the chakras. According to Tablet 7, Lord number 3 controls the root chakra, which has to do with everything that's mortal. This lord is called Lord of Death, which in that case corresponds with Marduk, and he's called Untanas in Tablet 7, also corresponding to the planet Mars. Thoth explains that while his father, Enki, was king of Atlantis, known to us as Poseidon and Neptune, he was taught a lot of secrets by his father, and his thirst for knowledge became his passion. Among many other things, Thoth learned about the halls of Amenti, and eventually he was brought there, where he received the key of life as a gift. What this meant for Thoth was that when his life as Thoth was coming toward an end, he went to the halls of Amenti, where his body was rejuvenated by the eternal fire. His body was then put in stasis, with his soul resting within. He writes in Tablet 1, I, While I sleep in the halls of Amenti, my soul, roaming free, will incarnate, dwell among men in this form or another. In other words, he could leave his now eternal body in stasis and go into a new incarnation and live among men as a new person. After that, for him to be preserved, he needed to return to Amenti every 100 years to rejuvenate. He also had the opportunity to leave his Amenti body and explore the stars and the universe as he wished, traveling without a physical body. In other words, he was having out-of-body experiences, OBEs. Thoth goes on, musing about the great flood, the deluge, that swept over the world. In the incarnation of Noah, Utnapishtim, he entered the great ship of the Master, Tablet 1, and flew up into the heavens with his ship and his men that he had gathered. Just like I wrote in the WPP, the Ark was not a boat, but a spaceship. In Tablet 5, Thoth even mentions the word spaceship. It says, "Into the spaceship I brought all my records, brought the records of sunken Atlantis." He also claims to have been the builder of the Great Pyramid. In Tablet 5, Thoth writes about the creation of the Sphinx. Chem, which he was writing about, is Egypt. The tablet says, "Raised I to light, the children of Chem. Deep neath the rocks, I buried my spaceship, waiting the time when man might be free. Over the spaceship erected a marker in the form of a lion, yet like unto man. There neath the image rests yet my spaceship, forth to be brought when need shall arise. Know ye, O man, that far in the future invaders shall come from out of the deep. Then awake, ye who have wisdom. Bring forth my ship and conquer with ease. Deep neath the image lies my secret. Search and find in the pyramid I built. Each to the other is the keystone, each the gateway that leads into life. Seek thou in my pyramid, deep in the passage that ends in a wall." This is interesting, as Thoth seems to describe how he hid the Ark spaceship beneath the Sphinx. He also talks about invaders coming up from the depth. But those who have wisdom will bring forth his chip and defeat the invaders. Moreover, he advises us to search the Great Pyramid deep in a passage that ends with an erected wall. In there, from what it seems, is a gateway that leads to life. The problem is that we are not the only ones who have read these tablets. The elite must already know about this, and the secrets might already have been found and fallen into their hands. Tablet 2 is also interesting. Here Thoth returns to the underworld, the halls of Amenti, and speaks to the Master of Darkness, who can't be anybody else than Marduk. He calls him the guide of the way from life unto life, which sounds like the Lord of Reincarnation to us. Thoth distinguishes between true souls and artificial souls, and he asks the Master of Darkness not to trap the flame of the true soul with the power of night, i.e. death and rebirth. Thoth then describes one of his astral travels, and the tablet says, "Then grew in the great space before me, flame after flame, from the wail of the night. Uncounted millions leaped there before me, some flaming forth as flowers of fire. Then spoke the voice of the Master of Darkness. These are lights that are souls among men, growing and fading, existing forever, changing yet living, through death into life. When they have bloomed into flower, reached the zenith of growth in their life, Swiftly then send I my veil of darkness, shrouding and changing to new forms of life. This can be interpreted as both the recycling of souls and the splitting of souls, as discussed in previous videos. Thoth then is telling the future humans, i.e. today's humanity, awaken, O flame that burns ever inward, flame forth and conquer the veil of the night. To be continued in part 2.